something I definitely want to talk about, and there's been some posts being made, and I wanted to bring this up and discuss this with you guys. And that is this little portion here, this thread, which brings to light a very interesting thing. So I'm going to read out this little post here. It's a little bit toxic. Thankfully, the supporters actually removed some of the toxicity stuff, but I will talk about this because it is a fair take in many aspects. So this person, Benjamin Bona, made a post saying the game feels horrible to play. The 3.15 nerfs plus the 3.16 nerfs have just killed this game. He's saying you guys went absolutely bananas with nerfs in 3.15. We can all agree on this. And now with 3.16 launch, you disguised it and hid so many nerfs. Now, this is something that very few people are talking about. There are a large variety of changes and nerfs in 3.16 that are undocumented, and people are not talking about it too much. I'm going to mention minions a lot in this, and I will talk about a few other things that is kind of weird. And it's fair to say that I will mention this. We are not talking about things like the fix to the jewel trick we experienced not too long ago, which was up on YouTube, sorry, on Reddit, and 8 hours later it was patched and fixed after I posted this video. Because apparently this was exploitable and abusable through intuitive leaps and thread of hopes, where you could spec nodes where you weren't connected to those jewel sockets. So I think this is a fair approach to not mention these things. Thank you so much, Pantasa, for the sub, man. So this is a fair one. I think that the aura that happened last night, where the aura bots, the solution they found to aura stacking, and then, you know, it was what, 11 hours later this was fixed as well. I think that these are bugs and exploits. I'm not sure how I feel about the aura one, but I think this one here that I made a video on is perfectly fine that got fixed because of the exploit. Granted, I would like to have this feature. These are not things that I'm talking about when I'm saying nerfs. So, to continue reading his post, I can't even list all the builds that were attacked. It's quite insane. These new masteries are more akin to a nerf than buff, and this is something I wanted to talk about a bit more. So, many notables on the damage on tree were actually removed or nerfed, and if the build cannot make use of the masteries, then it's even worse for them. There's a reason the build diversity is god-awful right now. Literally everyone just playing the same few meta builds. So, have a look at PoE Ninja, which is the only way we were able to look at a different place like this. Would be the Toxic Rain is still prevalent to being a pressing meta, which was kind of expected. And then we have the classical Cyclone. A lot of these are cast and crypt builds. And then we have Tornado Shot, Corrupting Fever, Exsanguinate, Seismic Trap, and then we have the Mage Skeleton approach, and then we have Divergent TS, but TS is already up here, so TS is going to be one of those big Magic Find builds, which a lot of people have been playing again. And then after that, we get the Mjolnir builds, we get some Poison Concoction, which actually looks really cool, and then we start getting some different builds. Spectres are down the fucking drain, people trying to hang on for their lives there. And very few people are playing Dark Pact as per usual, which is crazy considering how easy it is to get stupid amounts of damage. So the meta is kind of meh. You know, one build is skyrocketing above everything, which is Toxic Rain and Tornado Shot. Tornado Shot has to be Divergent, 5 plus 8. That's 13%, and Toxic Rain 13%, and then it just crashes down. So it's basically two big meta builds right now, and a pretty big spread on the Cyclone builds, which is actually quite a few different builds. And then you have the CF, Exsanguinate, Seismic Trap. I'm actually surprised not to see Io Winter up there. Io Winter should probably be up there. I think that's better, personally. Either way, this might be worse than 3.15 retention. How pathetic is that? I wonder where this clip was. Okay, he's just showing the player retention. I think this has a lot to do with like Lost Ark and whatnot we've been playing, which is in closed beta, which ends in 2 days from this recording. And then we have some other things here. We need some major changes, either undo most of the support gems, blah, blah. He's talking about solutions, blah, blah, blah. It's a joke compared to 3.13 PoE. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, but you know, he's saying that he would rather play a 3.13, never touch the game for what it will become in a year from now. So a lot of people are upset with these things, and I don't think a lot of people understand what this part here means. So what they're talking about, and I'll refer to more of the minion stuffs first. So what they said with masteries is that they were going to remove interesting modifiers from notables, and what a notable is this here is a small passive, that a small passive, that's a small passive, this is a notable, and this is a keystone, and that is a mastery. Those are the different nodes that you get from the tree and what they're called. Small passive, mastery, notable, keystone, right? So now we got that out of the way. So what happened is that they said they're removing interesting things from the notables and putting them into the masteries. I was expecting to see a very large list of mastery nodes. So I'm going to take very few examples for this, but you guys will get it. So I'm going to talk about minions. So if you look at minion notables, we look at minion off defense masteries, plus max elemental resistances, actually better than it looks. And then we have this link skills can target damageable minions. I think that's fine. Minions leech, that's also fine, because one of these things is that we usually went in, a lot of minion builds went into sacrifice and picked up the node that was right next to it to get some leech, because the death attunement leech up here was only 0.2%, and you could get another 0.6 from here if I'm not mistaken. So having 1% minion leech is actually really nice. This is a good solution where they've moved modifiers from nodes around the clusters and put them in a defensive mastery option, allowing you to spec into any defensive one and get that specific minion leech node. That is a good, healthy decision, exactly in line with what they said they were going to do. Then we have Convocation Cooldown Recovery. This wasn't included, but I'm not going to complain. I think that's fine. Minions recover life and death. Completely useless in most cases, and it's a bit whatever, right? Then we look at the minion offensive masteries. Now, in my case here, I have some spec, I believe. Minion defense, I do have reduced life recovery with % life on them. And minion offense, I have one of them, which is an increased effective offering. The other minion offense masteries that we have access to is Overwhelm, physical damage reduction. In many cases, completely useless. Penetration of 8% curse enemy elemental resistance is sort of their solution to removing elemental equilibrium, which is kind of weird because elemental equilibrium gave 50%. This is 8. There's no way in hell that this is even close to making up for that loss. So that is a massive loss for a lot of elemental builds. But they fixed elemental versions is pseudo way, right, by buffing the elemental skills. But elemental minions still got the shit done. Like, all elemental minions are doing vastly less damage than they did before. This is like there's no redeeming factor. There's no fix to it, because they gutted out 50% and gave us back 8 out of it. It's like, it's just weird. However, this does promote mage skeleton builds, because this works for all elemental resistances and not just one, which is how we played with the elemental equilibrium. Minions have a chance to get Unholy Bite for 4 seconds. I believe this was in the Grave Intentions notable. This is a perfect display of how they are moving an interesting modifier from a notable into the mastery. Now, I'm not a big fan of this node myself, but it's in line with what they said they were going to do. And then we have 100 crit chance. Okay, it's whatever. This is worth 1/4 of a 1 power charge. Now, the way charges works for minions is that the power charge gives the minion 400% increased critical strike chance. This mastery gives them 1/4 of 1 power charge. It's completely useless. Accuracy is a joke. They even buffed this. Minion builds gets accuracy by leveling up the gem, which is the way you scale them. Even low budget builds don't need to take this to hit their cap. At any given time, it is better to just add a little bit of accuracy on 1 jewel, and that will sort you if you need it. And that is only in a very small window of your character's progression that you might need this. And it's just so stupid. And then you have the 20% increase effective offering. That's it. So let's look at what happened to them. Let's look at Enduring Bond first. The refreshing effect from the SRS, for example, completely gone. There's nowhere to be seen. The Spiritual Aid lost some of the other stuffs like accuracy and whatnot, and they moved those accuracy nodes into nodes like this on the side here. Redemption is about the same, right? Sorry, about the same, right? And then we look at other interesting notables such as Ravenous Horde. Ravenous Horde used to give attack speed, movement speed, onslaught, all of these things. Instead of moving the interesting notables from this into a mastery, which is what I expected them to have a movement speed and onslaught on kill mastery. Instead, that the interesting notables is still on Ravenous Horde. And they just moved away the actual damage increase from speccing into Ravenous Horde. It's just so weird. And then they have the 4% here before. And a lot of damage was taken away. And this is just for minions. So now I'm going to talk about some elemental masteries of what happened there as well. So tons of nodes have lost their interesting modifiers, which has not been re-implemented. Now, I understand that masteries is new, and they're going to need to rebalance and fix these things. But ultimately, all of these changes have presented an extreme nerf across the board for a vast majority of builds in the game. And that is what this person is talking about. He's talking about 3.16 disguised and hid so many nerfs. There are plenty of nerfs that was undocumented. And if you then look at, for example, elemental, I will talk about elemental modifiers, and we're going to talk about the specific elemental ones first. So let's look at fire masteries. We have fire exposure minus fire resistance. That's interesting. That's a good one. Recover when you ignite a non-ignited enemy. A bit useless, but I'll take it. It's fine. Conversion, I think that's generic, and that conversion exists on all 3 elements. I think that's fine. And then that's really interesting because a lot of builds had to go out of the way to get conversion from the tree otherwise. Cover enemies in hit when they hit you, or cover enemies in ash when they hit you. I think it's fine. Fire damage per 20 strength or strength stacking. I think that's fine as well. I think that the fire damage over time multiplier is with minus fire resistance. I think this is fine. The fire masteries are okay. They're interesting. They can be used across the board for a variety of different type of fire builds. They look fine, right? Then we look at cold mastery. Okay, enemies become chilled as they unfreeze. And causing 30% reduced action speed. Completely useless because you're already chilling enemies when you're playing a cold build. I don't even know why this would be in the game at all. This is so weird. Then we have the conversion, which I think is fine. Freeze duration, and nobody plays with this. And then we have chance to gain frenzy charge when you shatter an enemy. Okay, for clearing, I think that's fine. But if people want to have frenzy charges, they would not take this. They would go with a blood rage, or they would just not have it, or they have it through other means if they even bother frenzy charges at all. So I'm not sure if I feel about this, but it's interesting, so I'll give them that, right? Then we have cold exposure, inflicting minus cold resistance. I think this is fine. Cursed enemies in chilling areas have increased effect. I think that's fine as well. So in general, I think the cold mastery is definitely worse than the fire mastery, because there's almost nothing from the cold mastery that would be super interesting outside of these 2 down here, and they're very generic. Everything else is kind of shit compared to the fire, which was a little bit interesting. And then you look at the lightning masteries, for example, who has the conversion. Then they have lightning damage with non-crits is lucky, which is an insanely strong modifier for non-crit builds, which is just fucking brutal. Your shocks can increase damage taken up to a maximum of 60%. I think this is perfectly fine as well, but it's also very strong for builds that can achieve these numbers. 80% increase critical strike chance against shocked enemies. I think this is a fine, strong modifier, but still fine. Then we have non-projectile chaining lightning skills, gain +1 times. This is straight up just massive buff for arc, for example. It's not a projectile, and it can chain, and it's versus single target, that's 15% more damage. It's just ridiculous. Increases and reductions to maximum mana also applies to shock effect at 30% of the value, is actually really, really strong as well. So basically, if I were to rate these elemental modifiers, I would say that cold is a 1 out of 10, fire is a 4 out of 10, and lightning is a 12 out of 10. I don't know what they were thinking. And that's just a couple of, that's 4 examples, the 3 elements and Minion. I can take Chaos as well. I expect into Wither effect, which is really good on this build when I'm playing Dark Pact. The Chaos Mastery that we have access to is damage over time multiplier per 4% Chaos resistance. Okay, it's rather interesting. I'll take it. Level of Chaos Heal Gem, but lose 10% life and energy when used with Chaos Heal. That is an interesting modifier. I think that's fine. Chaos Damage leeches energy shield is a completely useless modifier to go for, but I'd say it's fine. The problem is that you usually leech energy shield, you need energy shield max recovery per second, so you can actually rely on it. But having just the leech's energy shield is completely useless. It doesn't matter if you have a fuckload of energy shield. The leech is going to be so slow, it's barely going to be noticeable. There's a mastery with 17% chaos resistance. Amazing. And then there's a generic conversion to chaos. I mean, I don't know. I think that they need to do a lot of balancing on the masteries, obviously. But to go back to the topic that I'm talking about, it is, in fact, a lot of nerfs into 3.16 that was undocumented. Other things that was not documented is something that I've been preaching about for the last, 7 years, or at least 5 or 6 years when I've been focusing on making guides for summoners, or in general. And the thing is, there are tons of changes with minions that were undocumented, such as the chieftains, which are generating power charges or frenzy charges, for example, through Carnage and Host chieftains. They don't need life tap anymore. There was nothing about that in the patch notes. We stumbled upon it and then went on to do a series of tests with them to verify this. And I would argue that a large portion of the community that do use these specters don't even know that you don't need life tap. There are content creators still promoting life tap support to them where it's not needed anymore. And it's just silly that there's so many things that are not documented in the patch notes that affects the way we play the game extensively. These are massive changes, especially when it comes to Spectres. But I have a lot of other problems with Spectres. And then they have the process of them fixing things like the aura bot or the timeless jewel. But again, the timeless jewel thingy that I showed on the video, that was exploitable. I'm perfectly fine with that being fixed. I just want to mention that again. But at the same time, there are AI issues with Spectres right now with aggro. Not just the fact that they're targeting Scourge monsters when you're not in Scourge. They're swinging in the air, hitting nothing because there's no enemy to hit, but they think there's someone there. Or not aggroing properly on targets even with Predator or Feeding Frenzy. You have to convocate them to make them target. And some Spectres, you actually have to be literally looking at the target. Your character has to be facing the enemy for them to actually aggro it. I mean, and that's been reported for weeks now, and it's not being fixed. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but at the same time, as I'm getting more and more frustrated about these things, I start to feel that I'm not at the point where this guy's at with the way he feels about the league, because I actually think that the league is good. I'm enjoying it. There are some bad things about it, but there's also a lot of good things, and I'm enjoying it. But the problem that he's bringing up to light here is the fact that there's a lot of changes and nerfs that was not documented. And it just feels very, very odd. I don't know. I just wanted to make a video on this and express my concerns and my thoughts around this topic. And I would love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments below. And if you guys here in the Twitch chat right now, in the chat, what do you guys feel about this? Because I'm not very happy with undocumented changes, because it's something that the Southerner community has to deal with on a 3-month basis. Okay, every time something changes, we spend 15, 20, 25, 30 hours on multiple people to make sure that everything works the way it did before, because we don't get the info. It's not that it would have been warranted or that the changes would have been good or bad. It's the fact that we don't know about it till we accidentally stumble upon it, and we have to test it and then find out. It's just so weird. But again, I want to try to stay on topic here and not make this video too long. The fact that there's a lot of things in 3.16 that were disguised or expressed as them moving interesting notables into masteries, and it just resulted in massive nerfs across the board, just feels weird. It was undocumented and uncalled for in many cases, and it's just odd. Anyways, I just want to start a discussion about this. I will read every single comment in the YouTube section here down below. So just let me know what you guys think about it. And I want to get some feedback, because I have my opinion as a streamer, and that can be very disconnected from the casual player base in many cases. And for me to get you guys' opinions and what you guys feel about this is important for me as a content creator, so that I can get some more perspectives on these things. So let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content, all that yada yada shit. Till next time, stay safe, keep rocking.